welcome to Major Keys. I'm here with Lindsay Gottlieb, the assistant coach from the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for joining me, Coach.
I'm really excited to be here. Excited to chat with you today.
Thank you. All right, so let's just dive in. How did you find sports? How did you find basketball?
Wow, going all the way back. I can't remember a time in my life without sports. I'd have to say sports found me more just from being a kid. I think I always gravitated towards a ball, towards, games of any kind. I'm the youngest of four, so I had older siblings. And my whole family was into sports, but I'd say particularly I spent a lot of time following my brother around and playing in the backyard with both my mom and my dad.
Speaking of looking up to someone, who were your early role models? It doesn't have to be basketball, but who were those early role models for you?
Well, I definitely remember. So my brother is 8 years older than I am, and he played high school baseball. And I remember, walking to the high school every day when I was done with, I must have been in elementary school, right? And going to hang around his buddies and his friends. I think, I really, really idolized him and them. And then as I got older and I started to kind of get into coaching, or at least the mindset around coaching, then I started reading everything, there was to read about, your great coaches from, Pat Summitt to Tara Vanderveer to, every sport really. I followed everyone and everything I could when it came to people I could learn from.
I read that you were watching the NBA draft when you were young and you said, I want to be a GM in the league. What made you believe that that was even possible, and what kind of, during the draft inspired that?
Well, I've been thinking about that quite a bit this year, on the journey sort of to the NBA and people asking, how'd you get there? The number one thing is that when I was a kid, nobody told me I couldn't. Like, it's just such an important thing. I think there was at one point when I was little, I wanted to be the shortstop for the New York Yankees. And then another point in my life, I wanted to be a US Senator or a Supreme Court Justice and, work in the NBA. And I never remember anyone saying, now that's not for you, right? That's only for boys, or that's for somebody else. And so that mentality, I think that environment of believing you can do anything was fostered by my parents and my circle. And I'm so grateful for that. So growing up, like I was definitely a sports nerd. Like, I loved playing, but I loved watching and the mental part of putting together teams. And so the idea of the draft was exciting to me. The idea of, there was a job where, someone's charged with putting a team together, a GM. I thought that was so cool. So I think when I said I want to be a GM one day, there wasn't anyone telling me, no, you can't do that, which I realize now was not that common, and something that I'm really grateful for that probably helped me along the way in my career, particularly as a woman.
So your career, it takes you to Brown. You have a couple of injuries that put you on the sideline, but obviously that pushed you toward coaching. And you get the opportunity to be a player coach while you're there. And upon the end of your career, or excuse me, your playing career, you send your resume to every D1 coach there is in the women's game, and you hear back from Syracuse, get an offer from Syracuse, but you also get a letter or a note back from Pat Summitt and Tara Vanderveer, two coaching giants in our game, two legends in our game. What did that mean to you?
Right. How cool is that? So it was actually during my senior year at Brown that I had a unique opportunity there. So I really appreciate, my college coach, Jean Marie Burr, allowing me to do that. So I was still playing on the team, but I was working in the office, and it was winter break. And, the athletes are there on campus. And I felt like I wanted to kind of get a leg up on getting a job. I knew that's what I wanted to do next. So I wrote all these letters. So as the second semester started, I would go to my little post office box that you had in college back in the day. And I would, I'd go and open it, and there were these like letters coming back as if I was a big time recruit, which of course I never was. I got a few letters here and there, but not one from Pat Summitt or Tara Vanderveer. So, those two, as you mentioned, wrote me handwritten notes. It was amazing. The thing I think, again, with perspective now, who they are in the profession and what they had done for them to take the time to, encourage me and write me notes. It's all about giving back. It's all about lifting other people up. It's all about empowering the next generation of women to do great things. And that's something I take really seriously now. I mean, the more that I can, I have to be good at what I'm doing. I have to focus on my job and being a good assistant coach for the Cavs every day. But in addition, if I can have a phone conversation with someone or speak to a group of young people, I'm going to do that, because that's how I got, I think, my start in this profession. I think that's how you use your platform to the best of your ability.
Do you remember what those notes said?
Yep. Tara's in particular said, so a lot of people sent form letters essentially saying, we don't have a job right now. And Tara's had a handwritten note at the bottom, and it said, Lindsay, the women's game needs young people like you in it. Best of luck. Keep pursuing your goals. Let me know if I can ever help. And it's so interesting. I think it was, so if I was 21 then, it was literally 10 years later. I was the head coach at UC Santa Barbara, and we were playing Stanford in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And obviously, then when I returned to Cal as the head coach, facing her on the other end of the sideline many times. I mean, it's very surreal even to think about that. So I remember that one in particular. And I just remember that Pat Summitt, wrote me back and had her name on it. She was such, obviously, an icon and a legend. I was just happy to get anything from her in the mail.
You mentioned that first head coaching job. You get that job 30, 31, very successful at a very young age. And then you go on to Cal and you have a very successful career there in the Pac-12. What did coaching 18 to 22-year-old women mean to you, and what did it teach you?
So while I was in college, the sort of moment that I decided that I wanted to pursue college coaching as my career, it was really for two distinct reasons. The first one was, I was such an X's and O's nerd. And while I was playing college, I realized, wow, this is really a profession. Like, you can do this, you can coach. But the other thing that really pulled me is that while I was that 18 to 22-year-old, having conversations with my friends in collegiate athletics, I realized that people's experiences were all along the spectrum, right? Some people had great experiences, and some of my friends were pretty miserable. And almost all of their experiences, I think, were directly tied to how they felt about their coach, how they felt about their team, about the sports experience they were having. It wasn't really about the class size in their chemistry class or what the dorm food was like. I mean, it was really about that, very intimate, intense athletic experience. And so I think when I was thinking about what I wanted to do in my career, I wanted to do something I was passionate about, which was basketball, but I also wanted to have an impact on people. And it just really hit me that 18 to 22-year-old college athletes are very impressionable. It's when you're kind of figuring out who you are and what you're going to become. And so the opportunity to impact that age group was exactly why I got in the profession. And in my 20 years in coaching women's college basketball, it was the most rewarding thing. It was the toughest thing. It was the thing I took most, seriously, was how to empower, young women. And I think the impact that had on me and what I sort of did with that role, that evolved even over the course of my career as I got older, as I had different experiences, as the student athletes changed a little bit. So it was like the single most important thing, I think, in my coaching career, particularly, the aspect of it in college.
And then the opportunity to join the NBA and go to the Cavs comes along. And this was by no accident. You were working toward this goal, right? What have you learned since making that jump?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had a vision, right? I had a little bit of like a dream of, okay, the NBA is out there. It wasn't like I was plotting or something. It wasn't a direct plan. And like you said, it really did just kind of come along at that place in time. There was a lot more talk about women in the NBA, obviously Becky Hammond, coaching for the Spurs, and some of, Adam Silver's talk about getting more women involved was making it more realistic. But in that moment, the Cavs sort of, I think, came after me, crafted this particular role and job for me. And it felt like, the right thing to do at the time. But a lot of things have come along with it. Number one, I was definitely scared, right? I was very comfortable at Cal. I loved what I was doing. I wasn't looking to go anywhere, but I think that's sometimes where our greatest moves come, right? When it's a challenge, when it's hard to leave somewhere else, you might even know you're doing the right thing by feeling compelled and pulled to do something different. So it's been unbelievable. I don't think this year went as anyone would have scripted. I mean, we had a coaching change at the All-Star break. That was kind of wild. Obviously, you know, the COVID-19 shutting the season down, I think temporarily, you know, if we get back, nothing was sort of by the script, but I've learned a ton. It's been unbelievable. I feel really at home here. I feel like I'm contributing and adding value to the organization, and I feel like everyone's really embraced me. So it's been an unbelievable life experience and professional experience. So yeah, I mean, any specifics you want to know about, I'm happy to answer, but just overall, it's been such a big change, and hard, but really rewarding and fulfilling and pretty incredible.
Have you felt like you've been uniquely positioned in any way, in any situation that you've encountered this year since joining the staff, that you were uniquely positioned for because you were either in the women's game, or that you as a woman were uniquely positioned to handle?
Yeah, I mean, I've coached basketball for 20 years, right? It's not like I'm coming in here as a rookie coach. It's my first year in the NBA, but I think I've been treated and sort of respected as if I've been coaching for a long time. So in terms of uniquely positioned, I mean, I can tell you a story of when I probably felt the most comfortable. And that was when, you know, I delivered my first scouting report, right? Because there's a lot of things that are different. There's a lot of new relationships to be built. Obviously the guys were super accepting right away, and as well as the staff in the front office. But in that moment of, you know, sitting there with the team and delivering my first scouting report, I think I felt the most at home, because that's what I've done, you know, probably 5,000 times, right, over my coaching career, maybe more, given a scouting report, talked basketball. So in that moment, I felt like, yeah, everything I've done up to this point has led me to be ready for this. And in addition, I would say, you know, I think that what high-level athletes value the most about their coaches transcends gender, right? They want to know, do you know your stuff? They want to know, can you make me better? They want to know, you know, do you care about me as a human being? They don't care about, are you a male or female? And so that's why I think, you know, I was accepted, you know, right away. That being said, I do think there's some qualities I have, whether they're uniquely from my female perspective or my women's college basketball perspective. I do think, you know, I can add, I don't shy away from being different. I don't shy away from, you know, being exactly who I am, which is bringing a different perspective. So in that sense, I also think I've been uniquely set up here to be valued for who I am. And so I bring a different voice and perspective to the table.
Unlike some of maybe the other women that have been brought into the NBA during this influx, you mentioned that Adam Silver has spearheaded. You are uniquely positioned because you were a head coach for so long coming in to the league, and you had this vision, right? I read that you had in your contract at Cal that if the NBA came calling, that you would explore pursuing that. So you definitely had a vision. What else is in your, I would say, maybe your master plan moving forward?
So I promise I don't have, you know, this big master plan out there. You know, the clause in the contract, I did feel like, I mean, I think that was just a notion of like dreaming big, right? And every coach has like a buyout clause. And if you were to go to a competitor school, I get it, right? Like there's compensation to people do buyouts. If the NBA was an option, I just didn't want there to be some type of financial hurdle in the way. So it was, I think, part of just my long-term thinking of, I don't want to take away any options for myself. And that's kind of how I am thinking right now too. Every single day, I want to be a great assistant coach for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I want to help JV Bickerstaff, our head coach, be as successful as he can be. I want to help, you know, all the guys on our roster achieve their individual goals and for us to achieve our team goals. And really, that's what I think about every single day. Now, you know, I hope have a lot of career left. And so I just believe that anything is possible. I'm really enjoying this. And I signed on here to be part of getting this organization back to where we want to be, the playoffs, you know, super successful. And then if something else comes along, another part of my career, I hope that I'll be ready for that. Whether that's being, you know, a head coach again, we'll see. Whether that's, I don't know, someday down the road, you know, doing something different in management, we'll see it. But I think you set yourself up best for whatever else is next in your life by doing a really good job where you are, by being authentic, by, you know, working hard, serving other people, making great relationships, and then, you know, going, you know, where your heart and passion pull you at that point. But I'm telling you, I'm really happy to be here and to be part of what we're doing. And even during this pandemic, I think it particularly highlights that, just because I'm so eager to get back to it. I miss it. I miss the team. I miss the guys. I miss, the kind of momentum that we had been building.
Visibility and representation are so important to young girls. What is your hope for women in the NBA, and maybe what that looks like in 10 years?
You said it. I mean, people can't believe that they can be something until they see it, until it normalizes a little bit. So, my hope for the NBA, which I think is just an unbelievably progressive league, a well-run league. I mean, we have terrific leadership. We have terrific, players and people in the league. My hope is that the league continues to go after the best talent that there is, that organization by organization, they look and say, how can we be the best? And I think at some point you start to realize if you're not considering a diverse pool, then you're not as good as you can be, period. So in my mind, eventually that's going to include more and more women, because you can't be at the top of your game without, including everyone. You have to find the right people, obviously, but I imagine that the NBA will continue to diversify when it comes to women. I think men's college basketball, will eventually hire women, because I can't believe, people are looking at their staff and saying this is the best staff it could be without having diversity of gender, of thought, of people. So I do think as we go forward, sport organizations will continue to mirror other successful companies, which are saying you got to be more diverse to be as successful as possible. And in the meantime, I hope that just being, one of a handful of women in the NBA, that, there's tons of girls out there who may not have an interest in basketball per se, but I want them to see that if they have an interest in science or in business or, engineering, that in some way seeing women break barriers in other realms, that they're also more empowered to break down barriers in whatever it is that they're interested in specifically.
All right, Coach, I have two quick, more fun questions. What is your favorite female sports moment of all time?
Probably in person, I saw Martina Navratilova's last match. It was at Madison Square Garden, and I went with my mom and my sister, and it was like a totally cool moment to be at. So I would say, for me personally, that just really stands out.
All right. And then my last question, which I ask of all my guests, is for a major key of advice. So if you could tell young women, young girls, one piece of advice, what would that be?
I would say find that ability to be authentic and to be the real you, and embrace that as early as you can. I think there's young women and girls spend a lot of time trying to be something else, trying to, get out of their own skin. And then eventually you realize feeling comfortable in your own skin is the best thing you can do for yourself, and also to help you be successful in whatever it is that you choose. So find your authentic self and then rock that.
Thank you so much, Coach. That's great advice. And I appreciate your time during this craziness to talk and to share some knowledge. So thanks you so much.
For having me. It's been fun. I thought the whole thing was fun, not just the last two questions. I thought all of it was fun. So thank you.
Yeah.
I got